Hello again, I am Blunty, and what we're expecting to be the very last beta test of Blue Protocol is about to kick off in Japan this weekend. And when I say we expect it to be the last one, what I mean is it's a network test, not just a regular beta. And a network test is commonly the last step in an MMO's pre-release testing beta stage. The game is basically cooked, it's ready, maybe a few last bugs to squish and whatnot, but they're not fiddling with mechanics anymore. Now they just want to make sure the server infrastructure is ready to go, or at the very least expose any problems they haven't found yet so they can fix it for launch. It's Japan only, of course, and while there are some non-Japanese folk who use like VPNs and just, lying to obtain access to the network test, over the last day or so, the devs have actually been revoking access of many of those people. We don't know what's triggering the bans, what they're looking for, what the secret is to avoiding being banned, but it seems like they're working to weed out the unwanted foreigners from the Japanese network test, which makes perfect sense, really, on their end. As I said, the point is to test the servers, and having non-local people logging in and playing via VPNs and whatnot could very likely screw with their data and give them misleading results. They really want just the Japanese player to be playing on the Japanese servers so they can get the most accurate data possible. Sucks to be you if you're a foreigner who got into it and you're all excited to give this game a go, but for the greater good, I guess, just suck it up. Anyway, just before the servers go live this weekend, they've broadcast another live dev stream, which I watched thanks to some live translations courtesy of a fellow YouTuber, Either a Song. You should give them a follow. They are bilingual, they are resident of Japan, and they will have access to the beta, and they will be streaming it. So I'll link them in the down below for you. Now, the dev stream covered a whole bunch of stuff about the network test, the kinds of content on offer, and how to get ready and whatnot. They say every weapon class has undergone a lot of significant changes since the last closed beta test, and some of the underlying systems have changed as well, including how builds generally work. And notably, this network test will be the first time the foe breaker is playable. So within all that, there's lots of information to look forward to spilling out of the lucky 10,000 or so players who will be playing in this network test beta thingy. The content on offer is limited, of course. The whole game is not on offer here, but you can go to level 20 and adventure rank 4. All 5 classes are available, and you can switch between them at your leisure. And you can play through the opening part of the story and have access to 4 map areas: Asteres, Asteria Plains, Bahama Plateau, and Mondnor Gorge. These are automatic translations I got from my phone. They're probably going to be called something different by the time we get a westernized release. But the interesting thing to note is one of these locations is something we have not seen in the previous closed betas, and we got to see a bit of this new map as well. They also said there will be some areas amongst these maps with very high level enemies above the level at which you can get to in the beta because of the level cap, but apparently you can go up to them and fight them, or at least try to fight them, I suppose. The same is true of some arena content, apparently. And the arena is kind of like a battle tower system thing where you go up various levels and things get harder and harder and harder as you go. The devs indicated level 3 and above is likely to be too difficult for the level cap on offer, but we'll see. We're gamers, and gamers will only see that as a challenge to tackle, not a limit or a warning to avoid. There'll also be several other content types on offer during the network test, including story missions, side quests, and raids, which open up at specific times and will be open for 60 minutes at a time. The level cap will also, of course, limit what skills and the like players will be able to unlock for various weapon classes. The devs then spent some time detailing some of the basic abilities and strengths of the various weapon classes. I'll skip detailing that stuff here myself, as I think that'll be easier to talk about once we actually see it in action in real gameplay by regular players. The reason they're talking about it is because this is the kind of stuff that's changed since the last closed beta. Some, like the Blast Archer, are said to have some significant changes since the last beta. Then there was stuff like the tank's crowd control skills have changed up a bit, the Twin Striker's ability to trigger vampiric-like health drain from enemies to the entire party. That seems kind of fun. I got the sense they've been very hard at work carefully balancing class abilities to make teamwork really fun, really interesting, and offer up lots of options for players. But again, I think it's best to save any deconstruction and chatter about this until we actually see it in action, with these classes side by side in actual teams fighting actual foes. But for those of you keeping track of this game, do let me know in the down below what weapon class you're thinking of playing, because for me, I'm leaning towards the Blade Warden, the tank class basically, or maybe the Twin Striker, the DPS, but I'm also quite interested in seeing how the Foe Breaker plays out, because that seems like kind of an off-tank kind of deal, and I tend to kind of enjoy that flexibility style character quite a lot. Plus, it's a great big hammer that sometimes acts like a shotgun, and I can't say no to that. Now, the new map area we were talking about, the gorge, I guess we'll call it, it was said to be very vertical and featuring caves and ancient ruins and mining camps and stuff, I think. This is also the area that will lead to the desert area, which we don't know much about yet. We know it exists, but the desert area will not be available in the network test, so that's still largely a mystery for us. They didn't show off a lot of combat, but they did stroll through the local village on this map, and we saw the teleport station. We saw some NPCs milling about, and we saw briefly what looked to be a stable with what might be a mount sitting in it. Unfortunately, it was night time when they were showing it off at first, so it wasn't easy to see much detail and whatnot, kind of muddy actually. But it did indeed seem to include quite a lot of elevation changes, with cliffside paths and bridges over rivers and ruins on craggy, rocky outcrops and mountains and whatnot. They then went on to talk about item distribution, and for the network test, because of the limited time players will have, they're feeding out some handy drops to help speed things up, including some dyes and some toning agents so players can test out the clothing customization. Now, the dyes, you choose your color with that, as you might imagine, and the toning agents let you control the hue more specifically. So the dye might get you a purple, but the toner will let you get a dark purple or a light purple, or anywhere in between. They're also giving everyone a land fox mount, which I think looks really cool. The distribution system works like it does in pretty much most MMOs, really just using a mailbox type access system. And being a free-to-play game, and with the worldwide version coming via Amazon Games Publishing, I would expect this system to also be used to collect things like Twitch drops as well. Much like they already do with Lost Ark and New World, two other MMOs they also publish. And I am part of the Amazon Creator Program, so hopefully that means I'll get access to some cool drops and whatnot for when I stream this game when we do get the Western release. Always love being able to do drops. Now, these items in the distribution system for the network test are account-wide, so while you can run multiple characters per account, you can only claim this stuff on one of your characters. It's unclear if that's how this type of thing will work when the full game launches, but it does seem likely. They'll also be running some time-based events throughout the network tests, like a window of time that reduces crafting costs, and another window of time that gives you bonus experience from certain enemies, or another window of time that boosts the number of times you can trigger bonus drops from defeating dungeons. That last one is a system I've talked about before in my video on monetization, because it's also tied into that. I'll link it in the down below. Makes me a little bit nervous, so if you haven't seen that video, it might be worth a watch. But in general, in other words, they have a system in the game to encourage certain types of activities to be engaged in simultaneously across the whole player base on the server, which seems pretty fun. Kind of like the emergency quests in PSO2NG, but kind of even more broad. Preloading of the install starts at 1 PM the day before the network test starts, and it will be done with a dedicated Bandai Namco launcher, which you install first, and which then itself handles the game download and install internally. I'd expect the full launch to work pretty much the same way, much again like PSO2NG does really, or indeed things like Genshin Impact. Having a dedicated launcher just makes certain things about games like this a little easier to manage. In the West, I'd expect Amazon might stick with a Steam-only distribution for PC, but the launcher might still remain within that. We'll have to wait and see on that. Then the devs started talking about anti-cheat. So the game will use a resident client to stop people screwing around with the game and data mining and injecting data and all that kind of mischief. They said it shouldn't screw with things like streaming software and the like, which some anti-cheat software has been known to in the past. Not really a big problem these days, but it used to be a bit of a friggin' issue. They weren't really clear on which anti-cheat system they're using though, so whether or not it'll screw up people hoping to play this game on Steam Deck or not is still unknown. All major third-party anti-cheat is now compatible with Steam Deck pretty easily, because Steam Deck has really changed the way things are done. But if these guys are using something bespoke from in-house for their anti-cheat stuff, it could be a pretty big issue for Steam Deck and other Linux-based gamers. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that, but at least they are testing this anti-cheat thing now with the network test instead of waiting to push it live with the game, which is something some other devs have done in the past. They've not included the anti-cheat in their beta tests and whatnot and pushed it live and had big issues with it on day one. So it's good that they're testing it now at least. The network test will also allow importing of pre-made characters that were created with the benchmarking tool, so you can test that out as well. This is also something you'll be able to do in the full game, of course. And again, this is also something I've covered in a previous video. I'll link it in the down below as well. The import process works pretty much as you imagine it would. You simply select the exported file you made in the benchmark, and the game slurps it in. They've also confirmed there will be a way to share character designs between users easily as well, so that's nice. And as they're wrapping up, one of the final things was just a reminder to anyone streaming or publishing VOD content to follow the creative guidelines and just be considerate of other players, basically. So, if you're actively streaming the story parts, add a spoiler warning to the title of your content and whatnot. But yes, for the record, they are perfectly happy for folk to stream and make content about the network tests, so hopefully that means there'll be a lot of stuff to watch. They also made specific mention that the character creation part doesn't happen until after the opening movie plays, which includes some music that might be a monetization issue. So it might be a good idea to let that play before you start your stream and can jump right into the character creation. But that's about all the important stuff they went over. From here on in, we just wait a few more days and see what starts pouring out from real people actually playing the game. And presumably, hopefully, fingers crossed, if everything goes relatively smoothly, we can expect a full launch date to be confirmed in the not too distant future after that. And then after that, hopefully we start getting some news about the Western release and possibly even the Western beta tests and whatnot that Amazon will be wanting to run because they will be responsible for the servers and whatnot. So presumably they'll want to run similar network tests and whatnot. But all of that remains in our future. Meanwhile, my hype about this game remains high. It's carefully metered. I'm trying not to get too excited too quickly because, I've been around for a while. I've been burned before, but everything I know about this game, it looks really promising. I'm excited to see what comes out of this weekend next. So what about you folks? How are you feeling? Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling above there, and we'll catch you next time.